So I'm back from my vacation, everyone. It was tons of fun, saw a huge amount of the Pacific Northwest, and it absolutely sucked the life out of me. I am so tired. I plan to continue to do at least 2 videos a week for a while, with the option of doing a 3rd video a week when I feel like it. But no promises. I need the extra time to get through all the comments I received while I was gone. Plus, like I said, really tired. I have been doing 3 videos a week for 14 months, and even when I said I was cutting down temporarily, I didn't, because I'm a psychopath. But still, December was the lowest growth for my channel I've seen in over a year, only netting 200 more subscribers. So just please remember to do all that stuff that helps these videos reach new audiences. Also, I created a patrons-only Discord in addition to the original Discord. I'll try to be as active on both as I can, but it will be a lot easier to get my attention on the patrons-only one, since there will be only like 30 people in it right now, as opposed to like over 600. Anyways, you guys voted I do the top 10 best figures of 2021 first. The top 10 worst will come on Friday. Let me tell you, this was a hard list to make. And no, not because I'm a relentless sourpuss who hates everything, but because 2021 was a fantastic year for the Transformers. Through Kingdom, 86, Bumblebee, and Third Party, we got no end of absolute stunners this year. Figure after figure was not just fighting to be on this list at all, but fighting for first place. Everything was jockeying for position so hard that I'm comfortable with almost none of my rankings. Every figure on this list could easily swap with the 2 below it if the mood catches me right. First up, some ground rules. This is not a list of the top 10 figures I reviewed this year, but figures that came out this year. There is no point in making a list like that when I review a lot of stuff not from the year it is. Also, anything that came out in like the last 2 weeks of this year just doesn't count. That's not for this year's list, that's for next year's list. So any of that Bumblebee movie Wave 2 stuff that's all spacey and cool does not count, even if I got a hold of it before the year's end. Also, Megatron doesn't count. That is still not out. I flat out reject that notion. It is a flat lie on Hasbro's part that won Kingdom Figure of the Year in the Transformers Hall of Fame. No one has that thing, so no one voted for it. Screw you, Hasbro. Don't lie to my face when it's so obviously not true. Also, if anything is part of a set, then it only gets to have 1 entry. No combiner is going to soak up 5 spots on these lists. And lastly, these are going to be figures that came out for the first time ever in 2021. Not re-releases that came out this year. No redecos, no retools, unless the changes they make are fairly extensive. Like Kingdom Ultra Magnus is not going to be on here. But ironically, I would say that Earthrise Cliffjumper, were it to have come out this year, would have been different enough despite being a retool that it would be allowed to fit on the worst list, if nothing else nudged it off. Though none of the retools of him that came out this year now qualify since the original figure came out in 2020. But that's everything, so let's count down the top 10 figures that came out in 2021. Number 10, Kingdom Soundwave. People are probably going to be mad at me that I put something like this on here. Cause yeah, they'd be right. It doesn't pose great, it doesn't look the most accurate, it's not the biggest, it's not the best painted, it's pretty much not the best at anything. But the simple fact of the matter that everyone who has one of these knows is that this is just fun. It's an immensely fun figure. It's impossible to keep your hands off it. You pick this up and you just can't stop yourself from transforming it as many times as its place on this list. I often find myself watching a video and just subconsciously fiddling with this figure without even looking at it. This is like the ultimate desk toy, and I honestly struggle not putting this higher on this list. Number 9, Kingdom Galatron. We've been waiting for an even decent Galatron since the 86 movie, and with this figure, while it's not quite a home run, we still finally have a solid 3-base hit. Is that what that's called? I don't know baseball. There are some places this could really be improved, like the head sculpt, the shoulders really needed to be manufactured correctly, the feet could use some work, and they needed to make a better choice for the plastic. This is some brittle feeling stuff that's losing a little material every time I transform it, though it's not given out on me yet. But everything else this does is great. The look is really good despite the head, the transformation is interesting and fun, the alt mode is almost exactly what it should be, so this is going to be in 9th, because there is too much holding it back for me to put it higher, but it does deserve to be on this list. Though, at the same time, I could easily swap this with my 10th, and then swap it out for another figure entirely. This is such a close list, it's maddening. What a good year. Number 8, Beast Wars Megatron. 2 purple boys in a row. There was some initial concern about this figure breaking, and I can say that while mine has done that, for me, it was a very inessential part. I have heard that later releases of this figure were made with some different, more robust plastic, and if that's true, this could very well jump several positions on this list, as what's really holding it back is just the lingering suspicion and mistrust, which is sad because otherwise this is such a phenomenal figure. It looks great, the coloring leaves a little to be desired, but that's so minor. It feels great, I mean, the rubber skin was an inspired choice. The transformation is definitely the best Beast Wars Megatron has ever had, it actually manages to be fun, and the result is quite possibly the most articulated T-Rex of all time. So, there are multiple levels to recommend Barney here on. If they had just picked a great plastic to begin with, I wouldn't have any complaints. This could have easily made the top 5, but instead it sits here. More than fair, I think. Number 7, Deformation Space Starscream. A lot of people are putting this at the tops of their list this year, but I really think that's just due to what it's not. It's not Masterpiece 3.0 Starscream. And don't let that cause me to take away from what it actually is. I would argue that this is the best Masterpiece scale Starscream ever made. It looks the best, it poses the best, it has one of the best alt modes, and honestly, the problems with the transformation are overhyped. I also really hated it the first time I did the damn thing. It took me several hours to complete on the initial run-through. But that's really just due to how specific the order of the operations is on this thing. Once you know what has to be done in what order, the transformation is actually really pretty good. I would gladly flip between modes on this 10 times over doing the Masterpiece Megatron once. I was able to do this on camera in 10 minutes when I reviewed this figure, and pardon me for reusing that footage, but I doubt I could ever do it that cleanly on camera again. And even then, I could have done this a lot better. This is a great Starscream, the best Starscream even. But I don't think this really deserves to be the #1 of the year just because it's not MP 3.0. It has its issues. As much as I just defended the transformation, it is still a very advanced one. And the paint on this figure, while nice, does make the null rays a real pain in the ass to deal with because you have to strip it before they will fit the figure. And if you transform it wrong, like I did the first time, you can really damage the sides of this thing. I think 7 is a generous enough position for this figure given all that. Number 6, 86 Wreck-Gar. It just goes to show how good this year was that a figure this great can be this low on this list. I honestly think if his elbows and knees could bend a little more, this would shoot up another 3 ranks. It's one of those figures that makes you wonder how it took Hasbro so long to make this, because it's just so good. Like, just on the sculpting front of the robot mode alone, why wasn't this done before? But then it's got great posability with the exception of the elbows and knees, and the alt mode is basically one-to-one screen perfect, which was something I didn't even realize was possible with this dude. You saw so little of it in the movie. All of this greatness is at the light cost of a transformation that's grazing the underside of mediocre. Like, it's bad, but barely. Really, the problem with this is that it's just kind of not satisfying. Nothing clicks into place, everything is soft and mushy, there's some vital parts forming. You are never going to transform this because doing so sounded like fun. You won't hate doing that part, but the reason you will do it is because you wanted this to be in the other mode, and that's the only reason. So this scores top marks in every category other than transformation, where it's like a 4 or a 3 if I'm being harsh. But that's a great figure if I've ever heard of one. Number 5, Kingdom Cyclonus. Yet another amazing figure to be included so low on this list. I mean, it makes the top 5, but like, wow, this is a good one to have not made the top 3. I feel like a lot of people are going to put this as their #1, and I totally get why. I mean, I'd have to be insane to not choose this soul-shreddingly awesome figure as my best of year. But in a year of unbelievable figures, this one was only spectacular. It's fighting giants, no shame in losing this time. Everything from the articulation to the transformation to the alt mode especially is amazing. People are saying that this should be the new Seeker transformation, and I get why they want that. The process is a blast, and the result is basically perfect. But this is a space jet. The level of retooling necessary to wrangle this into an F-15 would be impressive, to say the least. I think it could be done, but I don't see them doing it. But if it was, we'd get a very worthy Seeker mold, because the only problems with this figure is it looks a little stiff, and also the face. I call this Glenn Clonus now, and I am beyond proud of that. Really, if the face were better, this would be my number 4. It's really that close. But speaking of, number 4, Transformers Buzzworthy Bumblebee War for Cybertron Deluxe Origins Bumblebee. Aside from having probably the worst train wreck of a name of all time, this little guy rocks. I can profess for a hatred of this guy's head much as I do the Cyclonus, but otherwise this figure is just a little nicer than that one, just a hair. Posing in the arms is a little better, feet work a little better, accessories are flat out better. We've had halfway decent Cyclonuses before, but not even third party has done a decent version of this, which is one of the most important designs in all of the Transformers. The second alt mode we ever saw, and this is the first time in 40 years it has ever been truly realized. Sure, there was that way spacier thing that one company did, but that robot looks nothing like it's supposed to. Cool as a reinterpretation, but it's not the thing we always needed because of it. This was a hole in collections everywhere that desperately needed to be filled, and in 2021, that finally happened, and it was a fantastic figure otherwise to boot. And it's still not top 3. Before I get into that top 3, first some honorable mentions. 86 Nah. What can I say? It needed a waist swivel, it needed wrist flaps, the head needed to hide away better in alt mode, and the lower jaw shouldn't have been a skeleton. It would have been on this list if it weren't for those issues. Though, if you catch me in the right mood, I could still be convinced to put this on the list instead of something else. Another honorable mention is 86 Hot Rod. A great figure, but overpriced for what it is. And honestly, after handling the Rodimus, this kind of feels really cheap. Like, the plastic on here is very, very thin, and the colors look crummy. The yellow is especially offensive. I feel more comfortable leaving this off the list than the previous figure. It just feels so inexpensive for something that cost $30. Speaking of Rodimus and being overpriced, Kingdom Rodimus. Man, going from a figure that the very existence of pissed me off before it ever released to being an honorable mention on the best of year list. What a climb! To be fair, time has really dulled the pain of spending too much money on this thing, but the simple fact of the matter is you still don't get a figure worth what they charge. But you do get a pretty good figure. This thing went on sale for $60 almost immediately, and that's like the perfect price for this, though you can't find it for that anymore. How is Galatron on this list when Rodimus isn't, yet I rated Rodimus as the best of the wave when they were both in the same wave? Price, honestly. With what's the best, I cast price aside, since the whole point is to find the best representation of a character, period, end of story. With this best of year, I'm trying to factor in what gets you the most value. And a lot of what makes this guy cost $80 is completely superfluous bloat you will put in a drawer and promptly forget about. It's a great figure, absolutely better than the 86 Hot Rod, though I still say the Masterpiece Hot Rod is the best figure of the bunch, but this is great for the character. And it feels really quality, with a decent transformation and a solid enough alt mode even without the trailer. But there's just no escaping the fact that you are paying like a quarter more for this than they have any right charging at retail. And now I'm going to cut off the honorable mentions at 3 because we could be going all day if I didn't. There were so many fantastic figures this year. Now on to the top 3. Number 3, Transform Elements Scorpion. Now I know what you're all thinking, but this guy isn't just here because, like the Deformation Space, it's the incredibly timely replacement for a figure that's obviously going to end up on the worst of year list. This is not here because it's in comparison to anything. It's here because it's just amazing. It's a Legends figure that poses better than most masterpieces, looks more accurate than most masterpieces, and the transformation is amazingly simple to accomplish it all. It hits every goal it needed to without overcomplicating anything. Few figures embody the term micro-masterpiece like this does. And honestly, I don't see an actual masterpiece ever happening, and even if it does, it won't be as good as this. Number 2, 86 Grimlock. Is this so high just because it's a Grimlock and I'm the one doing the rankings here? Probably, but as someone who owns almost every Grimlock figure ever made, this thing is just so nice. It manages to look better than most of them, it has better proportions than normal, it poses better than most of them, it's made of great material. You will probably argue that it's way too simple, especially in terms of transformation, but I mean, it's Grimlock. He should not be complicated. Complexity for the sake of complexity is not a virtue. Sometimes simplicity is exactly what you need. Much like the Soundwave that's at number 10, it's hard to keep your hands off this. You look at it and you just want to flip it between modes. Now mine here has the upgrade kit, which makes the figure even better, but this would be on this list in this spot without this kit. There is just nothing to complain about with this. What could I even be mad about? It's everything I want in a Grimlock, and it didn't screw up the shoulders for once. Number 1. You might have seen this coming. I mean, somehow Mastermind Creations isn't on this list yet. Yeah, obviously they're going to have to take the number 1. It's MMC. Mastermind Creations Heiress Culture. This is such a transgression to put on this list. This is the top 10 best Transformers of the year, and this is a made-up third-party character. I might as well put Quick Changer 10-in-1 Robot on this list at this point. But man, how could this not be number 1? It's one of the 2 most articulated Transformers figures of all time, both made by MMC, but whereas the Optus Pexis has an okay transformation and a barely passable alt mode, this has a great transformation and a fantastic alt mode. And I mean, this almost makes the list on the virtue of having the best treads of all time alone. Toy treads always suck. How are these this good? They took a spindly Ladybot and turned her into a beefy space tank that isn't an H-tank with significantly less kibble than the Siege Megatron and gave it tons of posability and a great design. Every aspect of this figure is not just good, it's amazing, beyond impressive. The only problem is how the shins bend sideways. That's the only factor that needed more thought. But this is just a jaw-dropper of a figure in a year of those. 2021 and 2019 might go down as the 2 best years for the Transformers ever. My list is probably going to look insane compared to everyone else's, so I hope you enjoyed this trip down my unhinged mind. But I stand by what I said here. Heiress Culture, the not actually a Transformer, is the best Transformer of the year. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know you know what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.